I'm seeing lots of names, not a lot of faces today. Barbara, it's good to see you.
We had a whole herd of cows in our yard this morning that weren't ours. That was exciting. And then the cops went by chasing somebody. That was exciting. Now my kids are sitting outside waiting for more things to happen.
That's a very exciting morning.
Sometimes video or Zoom doesn't have great reception because of internet service, so sometimes the camera has to be off.
Let's see. Okay, I'm just scrolling through, making sure that we have.
So there's a name on here I don't recognize. Did we get somebody new? Shay Taylor?
Nope, that's me. It's just under my husband's name. So I'm going to change that right now.
Oh, okay. I was like, who's that? I was hoping I didn't miss the new hire that I was supposed to know about.
You've been hearing about Zoom bombers that get on and they spice up the meetings, but not in a good way.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. It looks like Laurie and Laura are both on and ready to go. Today, we have invited Laura Streeter and Laurie Markisich from Salt Lake County to talk to us a little bit about the work that they're doing with seniors. They have, when you look at their pairs and their reporting, they do quite a bit of senior classes. And so I invited them so that we could learn about how to best address their needs, as well as how do we get our foot in the door to reach that population. So we are going to turn some time over to Laura and Laurie from Salt Lake County.
Okay. So you want me to start, Laura? Are you there?
She's muted.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll get started and I'll just talk to you a little bit about the senior classes that I do. The thing about seniors is they are a lot of fun, but they really want to learn and everything, but they like to visit. In my case, they do. And so I try my very best to find ways to let them at the beginning of the class visit about their own families, what they've been doing, just like even the weather. I kind of let them visit a little bit. I have 2 classes that the seniors live in their homes, but they come to that facility during the day for classes. Or the one that I do, it's kind of almost like a college dorm. They all live in apartments, and they go downstairs for a great big hall that has their food and classes and everything. So they like to come and they like to kind of visit about the different things that they're doing there. They're able to walk their dogs a little bit. I can see them when I go down there. They're out busy, but I found some of the things that are really important to them is I have to have the room really comfortable for them. I have to have it all set up and ready to go and be waiting for them. And then they'll come in and start to visit. And, you know, they like everything comfortable. And then I've kind of noticed that I have to try to talk slower with them. Just kind of take it easy and be really full of detail. You know, they're there, they really want to learn, but really and truly, a lot of the things that I'm talking about and some of the things I'm doing are things they've done with their families or work already. And so I kind of let them tell me about that. I've had a couple that are have worked in school lunchrooms, and so they like to tell me how the nutrition is so important, and what they did and what the lunchrooms did. So I let them do it. I just let them talk, and then I just kind of let them share their wisdom and their experience from their own families, and then kind of put my input in. And then I try to have copies of everything for them because they're not as up on technology as we are or whatever. So I try to make sure that they all have a piece of paper. And there's one lady who comes, and she's been coming for years. Laura might even remember her. She has a folder, and she's kept every single paper, and she'll still come to the classes, and she'll pull out the papers, and she'll go along with the lesson with that paper. And it's pretty cool. She's really pretty involved.
I have a lady at the Magna Senior Center. She made her own little Create Better Health binder. And when what are we doing today? These are the handouts. Oh, I already have this one. I'll flip to it.
Yeah, they love it. And there's this one, she's at Friendly, and she keeps it all organized, and she asks me specifically which class it is so that she can pull her paper out. And it's pretty cool though, because they're really willing that way to, and most of them are, they'll participate and ask questions and talk and stuff. Then I've also really tried to stress exercise with them for their mental health, and just to get out and about. I mean, I know they're out walking their dogs and stuff, but I try to explain to them how easy it is to get some exercise in their homes because they don't get out as much. And let's see. And I thought some of the challenges are in one class, this is no lie, sometimes the ladies will be sitting there talking to you and go to sleep. They'll close their eyes, kind of nod their heads. So you have to kind of keep them really involved because, they can go to sleep.
And the seniors are so warm, it's conducive to sleep.
That's true. It's kind of funny though. But then I have to be really careful so that there's not a lot of confusion. Just have it really in order. That could be a challenge. And like I said, I try to make the room comfortable for them, because if it's not, they come in and almost start doing it for you. They like everything like in order. And then just try to reinforce things, because I know that I'm slower at my memory than I was 10 years ago. So I just try to reinforce, I don't feel bad a lot of the times when I'm starting to repeat another lesson, because I don't feel like they always remember everything. So those are some of my ideas and challenges. So, and I think Laura has quite a bit more.
Yeah, most of my tips that I wanted to share today were kind of dealing mostly with kind of recipe, how to handle the recipe situation. So I know like a lot of people like to use like a half sheet recipe because you can get more recipes out of a page. It's two, but it's nice if you can make the recipes tailored for the seniors and increase the font. And that may mean that even if you already have the recipe in the short format, you may want to go in and create a new one. A lot of our recipes that are tailored for seniors are saved with the notation senior version. And these recipes typically will be in a larger font size. The recipes most oftentimes have already been cut in half for them because they are oftentimes only cooking for 1 or 2 people. Some of our recipes that would serve a family just aren't conducive for seniors. And so doing that work for them ahead of time is a really nice feature so that they don't have to do the math. So if you can increase the font and cut the recipes in half for them ahead of time, that's really helpful. Going back to Laurie's comment about the seniors falling asleep or chatting, if you're office, if your county has a portable microphone, or if the senior center that you're teaching at has the ability to provide you a microphone, that can help you to talk above the chatter. That can help you to and then also just to be a little bit louder so that the temptation for them to fall asleep just isn't quite as great. Some other helpful hints as far as recipes go, pick things that are flavorful. Our taste buds kind of aren't as, I guess, sharp or whatever as we age. So picking things that are really flavorful, but not necessarily spicy. You can substitute oftentimes paprika for chili powder in recipes. If anyone on here has been around for a long time, if you know, like the Cabbage Patch soup recipe, it's one that's been around since I started 10 years ago. I think it calls for 2 teaspoons of chili powder or something like that. And most senior centers, they would just be like, oh, no, that's way too spicy. So you can cut the chili powder in half and do paprika so that the dish has flavor but isn't spicy. Also, talking about like issues with being flavorful. A lot of seniors will be like, oh, this needs more salt, or things like that. So try to pick recipes that are flavorful that don't need a lot of salt. And if you're teaching like the nutrition facts lesson, nutrition facts label lesson, and they have a lot of questions about sodium, take the 10 tips on reducing sodium handout with you from choosemyplate.gov, and that can be an additional resource for people who have sodium limitations.
Yeah, because a lot of times they'll ask you questions that they should ask their doctor.
Yes, and
yeah,
that's
like sodium stuff, and I'm like, no, or their diabetes or something.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions that are specific to like low sodium diets or diabetic diets. So things like that, when you have people say like, oh, I can't eat that, I'm a diabetic, and you're teaching the whole grains lesson, take like the 10 tips handout from choosemyplate.gov about whole grains, and give them additional resources so that if they have those questions, you kind of have that information there with you, and you can kind of answer some of those questions with those 10 tip handouts, and that can kind of help deflect some of those questions that might be more specific for a registered dietitian. And the question they have might be on that 10 tip fact sheet. So be aware too, you may have like, let's say for example, you take the recipe for like spinach and fruit smoothies, and then you have like half the class who's like, oh, I can't do that. I take warfarin, which is a blood thinner, because it interferes with blood clotting and things like that. So just be aware that they're going to kind of have special needs and dietary restrictions. Grapefruit can oftentimes interfere with certain medications. So just being aware of that, and just kind of not setting yourself up for all those like, oh, I can't try that, I can't eat that. So just kind of knowing those things ahead of time can kind of help make the situation a little bit less awkward when some people say, oh, I can't try that. The last couple tips that I have are pick recipes that can be frozen, so that if they do need to freeze some of it, that they can, they know that that's a recipe that can be easily frozen. And then I also like to put like tips about food safety at the bottom of the handout, like store leftovers in the refrigerator for up to 3 to 4 days. just 1 second. My husband left something in here and I need to get it for him. So I'm going to walk away for just a minute.
Okay, while she's gone, I can let you know that I've noticed that the leaders in the senior centers really like to have a schedule for like the whole year so that they can put it on posters or bulletin boards so that the seniors know when they come in what that class is for that day. So I try to, at the beginning of the year, I try to plan out for the year and then send it to them, and they're able to post it. And then I've noticed too, like right when I come in, they'll announce it over the intercom for the whole facilities and help bring them in. One of the things I've also noticed too, that we have a lot of the same people most weeks, and it's surprising you do have a lot of men too, and that's what's so cool about it, is you get to know them personally and you kind of look for them. There's a couple of ladies that have been really good about rounding everybody up in their group and they bring them in, and when they're not there, I miss them because they're kind of the lively part of the group. But anyway, I'll let Laura go back to the recipes.
Yeah, so I was just sharing that I like to put tips and reminders about food safety on the recipes for seniors, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I have a mother-in-law who, unless the food is fuzzy in the refrigerator, she thinks it's perfectly safe to eat. Like, when I've told her before, like, leftovers should only be kept like 3 to 4 days, she's like, oh no, if it's not growing mold, I still eat it. I have leftovers in here from 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, and I have a neighbor across the street who won't eat anything in her mother-in-law's house either, because she has food in her fridge that is quite questionable. So kind of those generations who have a really hard time throwing things away, who don't really have a real strong understanding of food safety. And those reminders are really helpful, especially since they're a vulnerable population for foodborne illness. And then the last tip that I have on here was to use the good foods to have on hand handout, particularly the side that says foods to make with good foods to have on hand, because it's a lot of simple meals. Quesadillas, a baked potato bar, fruit and yogurt parfaits, all kinds of really easy, simple things that can be perfect for quick, easy lunches, dinners for people who are only cooking 1 to 2 people. So there's a lot of great ideas on there. So maybe seniors who don't want to go to the effort to create and bake a whole casserole or create a whole pot of soup, if they're just making it for themselves, that foods to make with good foods to have on hand is a great comprehensive list of really easy meals that work perfect for seniors who just aren't in that season of life where they're cooking for a large group of people anymore. So, but that was all the little tips and tricks that I had kind of thought of and written down. But yes, your seniors are going to be a repeat audience, like Laurie says, and it's good. It's good for that information to be reinforced. And I see something here in the chat. Melanie's asking me to share something about evaluations. Laura, can you give tips for giving the evaluation? So yeah, I just try to explain them that the evaluations are a crucial part, are continuing to come and teach the classes, and they really need that information to measure what they're learning and if there's any behavior change, and just kind of not like an ultimatum, like, if you want me to keep this out, but just kind of like these evaluations and your feedback on these classes are what allow us to continue to keep coming and doing these classes. We literally had a senior center that we were discussing at length in one of our staff meetings years ago about whether or not we should continue going there, because the evaluation rate was so low. And we had some ladies who were very honest with us and just would come in and we try to hand them all the papers, and they're like, oh no, honey, we're just here for the food. We don't do the paperwork. And it got to be really frustrating. And so we just decided that if that was their mindset and that we weren't going to be able to gather data from that senior center, that it probably wasn't worth our time and effort to continue going there if we were just a pre-lunch snack for them. So sometimes you have to make those hard decisions.
Also with the evaluations, when I taught seniors, some of them just physically couldn't see very well anymore, although we do space it out and use a larger print on our evaluations. It's still sometimes hard for them. So some of them would have magnifying glasses, and honestly, sometimes I would just leave extra time to be able to sit down with them one-on-one and kind of read through the evaluation with them and help them mark what they wanted to mark. And so just being a little more patient and knowing that evaluations may take more time.
Yeah, that's true. I've got a lady that's blind in one of mine. And there's another lady.
Mary.
Yes, there's another lady in there that likes to take over. And so she'll go over and make sure that Mary has her evaluation done, and she'll read it to her and everything. She really likes to be. So you just kind of get to know their personalities, and you just kind of reinforce that personality. I just want them to come, so I don't worry about that.
Paola had a great tip on there too. When she taught at the senior center, one of the managers from the center would also come around during evaluation time and help to fill out those surveys as well. So if you can get somebody at the senior center as well to help with that, that could be another option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And be aware too, also sometimes the evaluation, our evaluation sometimes, like the senior center wants you to get like a head count of, so be willing and nice if they are trying to get like a head count of who's attending the classes. They like to keep track of that information too. They don't necessarily need a role, but I've been at some senior centers where they have like a separate role where they send around and they try to find out exactly who's going to what classes. So be aware of that your seniors may be just, they're getting your clipboard with your role and the center's clipboard with the center's role, and then you're handing them all these papers. So sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. And like Laurie's tip of having the room set up, oftentimes, for most other classes, I'll have the paperwork set up, and as participants come in, they pick up their own paperwork. But I've noticed that the senior centers that I work with, they just won't do that. If you have a table set up with the paperwork, they just walk right on by. So if you're in a senior center where everyone gets to sit at a table, have all the papers like grouped together in a nice little stack at each place setting of the table. And so people come in and their paperwork is already sitting there in front of them. Or if you're in a senior center where they just sit in a chair and they hold the papers in the lap, maybe make a stack of the papers on each chair. So as they come in, they just pick up all their papers off their chair and sit down, and they have everything all together. Because I've noticed with seniors, if you just have like a table set up and be like, oh, everyone gather one of each of these off this table as you come in, they're not going to do it.
There's also a question, I think this goes back to, directed to you, Laurie. If you plan for the entire year, do you repeat the class multiple times? How do you work that?
Yes, but what I try to do is I should go grab one, but what I try to do is like think of something in the month. Laura kind of helped me with this. I think of something like a theme thing for that month instead of saying, okay, this is the first class, this is the food plate, my plate class, this is the nutrition class, this is shopping class. I kind of like say something about veggies, and then I use that lesson. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
Instead of saying,
I will.
go ahead. Are you
I was
frozen?
just saying, I also repeat. Yeah.
Yeah, I repeat them, but I kind of make it look like I haven't.
So sometimes mixing up the recipes, changing, if you're going to talk about vegetables again, changing the recipe and demonstrating
Right.
something new can make it feel like it's a whole new class.
Right.
And emphasizing different elements as well.
That's
can
how
help
I
with
do
that.
label it by the recipe instead of what is in the class. And then they don't know that it's being repeated.
And we do want to offer this series to as many people as possible. So if you have other audiences, it would be best to, go do a full series with those folks once a year, and then go on to other organizations for the year. And then you could circle back that following year and use some of these recommendations of using different recipes to just reemphasize that information.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a question for you guys on physical activity. How do you teach the physical activity with a group that it may be a little more risky for them to participate, but how do you present that? What special ways do you present?
I try to teach things like, okay, you can do easy things like stand at the sink and hold on and practice your balancing, or just during a commercial, during TV or something, stand up and do some knee bends or something. I try to teach things that they can do in their house. And a lot of times they'll say, oh, I go for a walk and I do this, but some are pretty, they're pretty stuck in their houses, and yeah. So I try to find ways that they can do exercises in their home.
I like the idea of helping with balance. That's an area that is oftentimes really a challenge for people as they get older. It's to have that balance. Cheryl says that. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
I was just gonna say, I try to, like, in the physical activity handouts, I try to like show ones that maybe like they could do with the support of a chair, or ones that don't require so much, like getting down on the floor is pretty much out of the question for most seniors. If they got down on the floor, they wouldn't be able to get back up. And it can also get really awkward too when you have people in wheelchairs in your classes, and that can get really awkward. So you have to be prepared for that uncomfortableness of talking about and talking to an audience of mixed ability people. Of some people can't even get out of their wheelchairs, so you have to be kind of respectful and mindful of that as well.
So Lori Bates, do you want to share a little bit about that? I could see that you had something to say. Go ahead and unmute and share with us.
You know me, I'm always having something to share, it seems like. I think with exercise, I've done exercising in their chairs. There's a handout for people who work in their chairs a lot, and there are ideas to do that in your chair. And they're more likely to do the exercises, I think, if they're just going to be sitting in their chairs. And we would, practice that while they were there, and they were more apt to do it. I was just totally excited to see them willing to do it, because they can be kind of stubborn sometimes. So anyway.
Yeah, I just noticed in this chat that somebody said about the senior centers do physical activity things, and both of the ones that I work at, they do that. They have classes, and so the participants will usually tell you everything that they have done in those classes. They have people from the U come and do senior physical exercises with them, and they love it.
Okay, thank you. And that's good to know that they have other organizations that are coming in and providing more assistance with that physical activity, because that is an area for us where we don't want to put our participants at risk or ask them to do things that could injure them. And so I think having them move within their chair so that we're not asking them to get up or to do anything like that, but maybe just moving their arms, showing them what they can do safely, and only ask them to do it if they feel comfortable doing those things, and not ask them to participate if it feels like it's uncomfortable or outside of what they can handle. There's a few other questions along with that. Laura Cohn says seniors offer physical activities like yoga, or Cheryl says that in Washington County they have the silver sneakers, and Sit and Fit are good programs that they have available. And so just if you know those resources in your county, letting the people in the seniors that you're teaching know of the resources where they can, and where they will be guided by someone that is prepared and trained to be doing that physical activity with the seniors.
Christy?
Yes.
There's several, I think, and I don't know if they do it here in Washington County. I just know that my parents have been involved in silver sneakers in other gyms throughout the country. And then also Sit and Be Fit. I forgot the B in there. But they have videos online that we can look at to get ideas to teach. They were on the air for 32 years in programming, and so there's YouTube videos about Sit and Be Fit that are little things that we can do to encourage our seniors to be active, and ways to do it by just still sitting in their chair.
Okay. Nancy, I don't know that we have any handouts that address the seniors or movement in the chairs and things like that at this point. So no, we do not have any.
If you look at the pamphlets with the little cartoon drawings, some of them like show a person sitting in a chair, or you can see that like the person is in the L shape, kind of doing it seated. Or there's ones that you could, arm exercises in particular, there's ones that you could easily adapt to standing position or sitting position. So those trifold physical activity handouts that we have are a great resource. And if you're taking those anyways, showing them the ones that they could easily do seated is a great way to kind of highlight that information in there.
That's a good idea. And I like that you brought up the arm movements, because a lot of times the arm movements, they can still get their heart rate up by just moving their arms without that danger of falling or being injured. So,
and if you have people in a wheelchair, it's great to focus on those arm exercises, because sometimes those are the only ones that they could do. And so that's a way that you can share physical activity and talk about physical activity that's appropriate for everyone in the room and not just one person.
That's great. Mariana says that resistance bands, so probably the lighter weight resistance bands are a good one that she uses with her seniors. Okay.
Christy, can I make a comment also?
Sure. Yes. Hi, Cindy.
Just with my experience with teaching Tai Chi to seniors, and it is part of your health department, along with the Stepping Up and those other programs that you've mentioned. It's really important to make sure you give them that warning about anytime you start a new exercise routine, you should talk with your physician and make sure that we're taking care of that liability there. And also, we always tell them, if it hurts, don't do it. because a lot of people think, oh, you've got to do this and you've got to sweat and it's got to hurt in order for it to be effective exercise. And that's just really not true, especially with that population. So that's just a hint that I've had.
Okay, those are good tips to share. My next questions are, how do we reach this population? So in the guidance, the SNAP-Ed guidance, we are supposed to be teaching people that are living on their own, responsible for their own food, and they are part of, like, they do their own shopping, they do their own food preparing. They're not eating at a cafeteria or in a location or a center where the food is being made for them. So where do we find this population? Where do we find the seniors? And how do we make sure that they are part of our population? Laura, can you share some of the places that you're teaching?
Yeah, so one of the places that I teach is called Multi-Ethnic Senior Housing. It's senior and disabled housing in Salt Lake. They all have their own apartments. We found this particular group of people actually through Heather Schober, who passed away last May. Her mom was the Relief Society president for this area of downtown, and she had noticed that she was doing a lot of Bishop's Storehouse orders for people who lived in this housing complex and who were really struggling to kind of figure out what to cook with the food that they got. And so she reached out to Heather, and then Heather and I started teaching there. And then other seniors housing, South Lake Villas near our office, they live on their own. They have to qualify to live there, so they have to be a low income population to live in this particular housing complex. So they cook all their own food there as well. Let me think, gosh, being so far removed from all my audience. The West Jordan Senior Center is a day center where people come for the day for a variety of reasons. They can go and do crafts, they can exercise, they can watch movies, they can come to my class.
They crochet while teaching.
They crochet and knit while I teach. So there's a variety, and they can purchase lunch while they're there if they want to. But they don't serve all meals there. It's just a day center where the seniors can come and be there for the day, and and then they go home. So yeah, there's a variety of different settings. And honestly, I have to admit that in Salt Lake County, recruiting is just not one of those things that we have struggled with that some other counties do. It feels that like we in Salt Lake County have been really truly blessed in that we are the ones who get the calls from other programs and be like, I heard about you through so-and-so, or I heard that you guys might do this. Can you come and do? So I must admit, going out and knocking doors and trying to find these places is not something that Salt Lake County has really struggled with. So I apologize if that's not helpful to other counties who really have to recruit. So.
Well, I think knowing where you're teaching, that you're working in the day centers, you're working in some live-in facilities, can be helpful, but also knowing that reaching out to other organizations that serve a similar population is a good way to connect with that population. So I think that's very helpful. Mariana in Miller County says that she has public housing for seniors and disabled people. So look to your housing authorities in your area and find out, what does that look like? Where where are the needs within your housing populations and the public assistance for housing. Hiram, I haven't had a chance to read yours yet. So do you want to maybe just share what you wrote in there?
I don't think I typed anything. I think you're.
Oh, it's Heather's. Sorry.
Okay.
I was trying to talk and read the chat at the same time. Heather in Carbon.
Yes. So I was just trying to say that so my seniors, they actually don't even realize how much exercise they already do. So they have a excuse me, in their facility that's available for them to use at any time. So I've gotten them to start playing like the bowling and the balancing games, like snowboarding and whatnot. It's all low impact, so it's perfect for, you know, what's okay for them and what they're comfortable with. And I introduced him to Just Dance and the Michael Jackson Experience, and it's pretty cool. So they don't even realize how much exercise they're already getting. It's just, you know, kind of tweaking it a little bit to accommodate their personal situations. So bringing it to their attention has helped a lot, so that they know, hey, I actually am already exercising, but I'm going to throw this in there as well. So that kind of helped, and it helped them realize that they were doing more than they really thought they were.
Okay, thank you. If you know me, I'm a sucker for Just Dance. That's been one of my favorite COVID-19 activities. I like to just move and dance, but I don't know how to do it on my own. So I can follow somebody.
It's a lot of fun. I don't do it in front of many people.
I don't do it in front of anyone but my family. And I even caught my husband videotaping me the other day, and I went after him because that's not cool.
That's not cool.
Melanie says that they have a department in their county that's over aging and adult services. When they found out years ago from us that we offered nutrition classes, we were bombarded with requests for classes. So maybe making that connection in your county, if they have an agency that is working with seniors. I know that in Utah County there was also grandparent programs, and where there were grandparents taking care of children that their grandchildren but had custody of those children. So maybe that is an opportunity to teach seniors skills that they need where they need to take care of a family again and they're in a new situation. But you can also teach the youth in that. But that was also connected with the health department.
Yeah, we also have the grandparent program here in Salt Lake. So that's a great, and we've done classes with them before, and it's great to offer those for the grandparents and kids to come together. And
yeah. So one of the things also that Melanie mentions is that we have to make sure that we're following our low income qualifications. There are some seniors, we know that there's a lot of seniors that are living just on Social Security and slim retirement funds. And so those people do need our assistance, but there are also people that are seniors but are more financially stable. And so making sure that we are reaching the correct population, that we're making sure that we use our resources where they are needed the most. And then Melanie also says that rotating. So if you finish a series in one location, go in and teach at another location and then come back. And while you're gone, that population can turn over, like Casey was mentioning, that it gives us an opportunity to meet the needs of multiple agencies, or to meet the needs of different people through using different agencies, but also coming back and revisiting those and keeping those on a schedule so that they don't feel like you've just forgotten them, but say, hey, we're going to go here for the next couple of weeks, but then we will be back to meet with the people here again. And it allows them to bring in other guest speakers and teachers to provide a different experience for them in the meantime as well. Okay, does anyone have any questions about seniors? We've got a few people on that have experience in that and can answer questions. Anyone that's trying to maybe reach that population in their community and could use some help?
I see Hiram has a question about eligibility waivers, and I was just going to say that I have done a few eligibility waivers for day centers where just to verify that they're in a zip code that services a low-income population. So, for example, there may be a senior center in Cottonwood Heights, but they probably don't service a low-income population, so we don't teach there. But just having that day center certify that, yes, most of the people that come and visit their facility would meet that requirement. And then obviously low-income housing would automatically qualify.
Kaylee is asking about day centers often have a small fee to attend their services. Is there a threshold we cannot teach because of that fee? Kaylee, we really can't teach anywhere that charges. Maybe I can see that Heidi's on. Heidi, do you want to just jump on and share a little bit about that, since that's part of our grant in the SNAP-Ed guidance? Maybe she might be double teaming and trying to manage other meetings. So anytime that there's a fee, even with our 4-H programs, that gets really tricky. We have to make sure that our services that we offer are completely free. There can't be any kind of a fee for what we're offering because it is covered under that SNAP-Ed grant.
If the day center has a recommended donation just for lunch, but it's not a fee to use the facility, that's different though, right?
Right, that's them paying for their lunch, not to be able to enter the facility. If they have to pay to enter the facility, then we probably shouldn't be teaching there. If they have classes, specific classes that you have to pay for, and ours is not one that has to be paid for, then that should be okay. But we cannot ask them to pay any money to access our resources. Boys and girls clubs. Becky, are you asking about boys and girls clubs for, like, they have to pay a fee for the boys and girls clubs?
A lot of boys and girls clubs do have fees, but a lot of them have waivers too. So if it's still at the school where it qualifies, then we have been teaching there. It's kind of one of those gray areas.
Okay, and can we base that on location, like where they are in the census tract?
Yes, and if so the school qualifies during the day, then it's a school that will qualify for us to teach for Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. Okay, so as we've been going through, I've been keeping just some notes, and so I wanted to just summarize some of the things that I thought were interesting and would be very helpful. I really liked the idea of the microphone for teaching seniors. I know that in my family, being hard of hearing just comes with age, and so I've always been told that I mumble by my grandparents. And so I know that in Salt Lake County, they call it their Brittany, and it's just a little microphone that attaches and allows them to be a little bit louder and to be heard better. If you find that that is something that is needed, if you are struggling to be heard, maybe you have a little bit of a softer voice and something that would be helpful to amplify your voice a little bit, then let the state office know. I also loved that you are making special recipes with a larger font, and the half of the recipe for the seniors. That really shows that you're caring about the audience and that you're making those few things that will make it easier for them to use what we're teaching them by making those few changes.
I was just gonna add, if you all see a need to have the evaluation with a larger font, just let me know. We can get that done. It will make it longer, so take that into consideration too. Maybe it would become a 4 or 5 page document, but we could definitely have that done if that would be helpful.
Yeah, years ago, the prototype of a senior evaluation was sent around, and an NEA who's no longer with us here in Salt Lake County, Penny and I were kind of testing that in the senior centers that Penny and I taught at the time. But then after the prototype came to us in Salt Lake County, and then it never went anywhere. So.
Okay, so maybe that's something that we need to revisit. We'll look into that a little bit more and see where the needs are. Okay, do you guys have any other questions before we adjourn this meeting?
I actually had a thought just from experience of teaching some seniors. I think seniors still want to learn. They still want to grow. They still want to be better. And I think our minds, well, our bodies might get older, but our minds still believe that we're young and can learn things. And I love that about them. So they still want to play. They still want to have fun. You know, you could use a beach ball and toss that around for a review, or a balloon is even better sometimes, and toss that around, and as people catch it, you can do a review about your lessons, and you can add fun games in and things that will still grab attention. So don't be afraid to play with your seniors as well.
That's a great reminder. I know on YouTube, if you watch YouTube, I was just scrolling through Facebook one day, and it took me to a senior center where they were playing Hungry Hungry Hippos. So
Oh my goodness.
they threw like the balls, the ones that you jump into, they threw those all over, and they had, the seniors were in wheelchairs and they had brooms, and then someone that was able to walk would push them forward, and then they would try to sweep those balls back to their circle. So they do want to have fun. They want to smile. They want to visit. They want to interact with people. And so finding ways for them to find joy and happiness and have fun is a great way that we can connect with them and keep them coming to our classes as well. Cheryl says bingo. That they like to play bingo. And Laurie says that Amazon has battery mic clip headsets. That might be something that we could look into for those that feel like that's something that is needed. I know there were times in larger groups and seniors that I did use a microphone, but it was usually supplied by the location, like a library or something like that. So, but we can, if we need a microphone, we can do something like that to help in the classes.
I must admit that getting the one that you wear made things a lot simpler for me, because when I was in centers where I had to hold it, I would talk into the microphone, tell them what I'm going to do with the food next. Then I'd have to put the microphone back, do what I was going to do with the food, then pick up the microphone again, tell them, okay, this is what I'm going to do with the food next. If you're wearing it, you're like the infomercial people, you know, they
Food show.
yeah, it's your own cooking show, and you can move through the demonstration seamlessly and talk through it just like you would without that constant picking up the mic. Okay, I'm going to do this next.
Okay, that's great. I taught in the library, and they always made me wear a mic, and at first it was really hard to get used to, but after a while I was okay with hearing my own voice amplified. So it looks like Melanie has is this the one that you guys use in Utah County, Melanie, that you posted in the chat? Okay, it's something like that. So something that would clip onto. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our seniors chat. I hope that it was helpful, and you, as we move back into our communities eventually, hopefully, this gives you a new area to look to. Maybe this is a population that you have not been meeting the needs of, but this has given you some ideas of how you can better be prepared and how to find those people in your community. We appreciate you being on and look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. We are going to have a meeting on Wednesday. I cannot tell you exactly what that will look like, but because we are having to change. We were going to be talking about summer programming, but there's still too many unknowns. So we would really love if you could join us on Wednesday. We'll kind of update you on what's going on. We have a few other items of business that we'll address as well on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. So if you have any other questions, add them into the chat. And then, was there a comment?
It's Barbara. I just wanted to comment that since the restrictions and we haven't been able to teach a senior centers, one thing that's been, I think, quite helpful to us is to send things in their newsletter. The first month I sent the good things to have on hand handout, and I think most of them found that quite helpful, especially since the stores were out of a lot of things and we were advised not to go to the stores. Part of it's a countywide newsletter that they send. There are some sent by mail because, like you say, some of us are not too into technology. And so some are mailed and some come over the internet. But I think that's been a good way to keep in touch with them. And then we had recipes and egg safety for Easter. Just a thought, you might contact, if they are, sending out some kind of written information, they might want to include something from us.
That's a great way to stay in touch with them during this time. Thank you, Barbara. We appreciate that. Okay. I'm not sure if she's saying something else. Okay, everybody have a great afternoon. Enjoy the spring weather. It's so beautiful outside. Get outside, go for a walk today. Make sure that you get your modeling in. If you are getting your 20 hours, make sure that you're taking advantage of that modeling as well, and enjoy being outside as the weather is changing. So we'll see you on Wednesday morning.
Thanks.